Look at that. Bumpity, 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 bump, bum, Jim Check with Ian Burns, Now Media. And this segment, climate confusion. And I think a lot of that happened yesterday, a lot of climate confusion. But here we have, here's the leader of the climate confusion. Let's let him at the UN here say his words.
We must choose climate justice. The climate crisis is accelerating, but so are the solutions. The clean energy future is no longer a distant promise. It's already here. No government, industry, or special interest can stop it. But some are trying, hurting economies, locking in higher prices, and squandering a historic opportunity.
Yeah, his audio doesn't look like it's because it's translated. That's why his audio seems to be out. That's all. Did you see that?
They're always English, aren't they? Have you ever noticed that? The translators, even in the Canadian Parliament, you have Englishmen. What are they doing there? Translating French in Canada. Weird.
Yeah, and so this was all at the UN after Donald Trump gave his speech and called the climate agenda the climate scam and a big con job. And at the same time, we had this escalator thing that went on, and they're pointing fingers at each other now. The UN is saying it was Trump's team that stopped the escalator and the teleprompter. What? But according to one news outlet, said this is from the Times. The UN. It said that one of the staffers had said that they were going to actually do this. And just as a joke to kind of tell Trump they ran out of money, so he has to walk up the stairs. But all of that is really all about the climate stuff going on. This is what we really want to talk about here. And then, Trump really calling it a climate scam, right, and a climate agenda. And that's right in front of all the people that are basically ran all the policies, especially in the Western world, right? The UK, France, Germany, most of the European Union, I guess. Canada, definitely the poster child for a climate agenda, and the US moving away from it. And Carney praised China the other day on climate agenda. And we got this image here about all the coal plants that are fired up by China here. Now, keep going, keep going. It's the one with the 354 new coal-fired plants. No, there you go. Not bad, eh? So he praised China in its climate policies. I don't know if Canada fired up 354 coal-fired plants. I don't know. Somebody would be losing their mind, wouldn't they?
You would think so, wouldn't you? You'd think Greta Thunberg would be on the first rowing boat, the first trireme that she could find to the Chinese coast to complain and protest. But alas, she would rather go places like London, the capital city of this sad, pathetic country that has destroyed its own economy and its own living standards, to appease, basically, Greta Thunberg. That's where she'll go. That's where she'll go and protest and get arrested. She's not on her way to Shenzhen or wherever that is in China, where all the big blue dots are. Not interested in that.
And then in California, they're turning off that big $2.2 billion solar plant that never lived up to his promises. This is kind of a weird one. They kind of have those big collector plates that then reflect the light to the tower. It's almost like Lord of the Rings kind of thing, that tower. What do they call that tower there? The
Eye of Sauron.
The Eye of Sauron, yeah. So they projected all this heat energy at the tower, from reflectors. And during the time that it is, I think it was about 6,000 bird deaths a year. So if a bird flew through that beam, it just got basically fried.
Jesus.
It's like Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? Basically.
Renewable energy absolutely hates birds, particularly birds, isn't it? I think if birds had a say, if birds had MPs or senators, they would always vote against this stuff, wouldn't they?
Yeah, no, it's just if the birds had a representative there, right?
An owl, perhaps, a wise owl. But this is sad, isn't it? Because I have to admit, that does look kind of cool, doesn't it? And it's quite a cool premise. So it's a shame that it didn't live up to its potential.
Yeah. It's like the beam. I've seen a bunch of videos on this. It's actually pretty. Like that beam is. It's like almost like a laser, right?
Yeah, very cool. But I mean, look, it even says in this article here, which is from the New York Post, I assume, it said that it was relying on natural gas to stay operational. And that's precisely what Donald Trump said at the UN. He said, this energy is is futile. He said, I never heard of energy that costs more money to run than you get out of it. It's more expensive to keep it going than it is, than the benefits that it produces. It's like a net loss, in other words. And here
Yeah.
is an example of that being true. And that's certainly true in what we were just talking about there, England, which I think is like the poster child for energy policy failure for the whole planet. What they do in England is well, one of the things they do is they ship in wood pellets from British Columbia. So they ship them halfway around the world and then burn them in a power plant and call that renewable. I mean, you can ask yourself whether you think that's renewable. But what they also do is they buy gas from continental Europe, from the Belgians and the Dutch, and they use that to supplement wind power, when wind doesn't work, which is often.
Wind,
So, I
wind.
mean, there's plenty of evidence that what Trump said is true. I mean, he says it in such a way that he winds people up, doesn't he? And he tends to attract a very negative response. But a lot of what he said is accurate. I mean, there's a general truth to it.
So they're in that desert there where they're scraping up the remains of 6,000 birds a year. Also, the windmills definitely no friends to birds as well. Especially large birds that fly through there, not seeing it as the windmill is turning, and they just get there. They get fried, and the other one they just get clubbed.
Well, the really horrible thing is there's already a massive decrease in birds going on all over the world. I mean, we don't every 6 months or so we get a press release, don't we, from some nature charity. I can't remember what it is, saying that like Canada's lost 80% of its birds or something. That
Mm-hmm.
you get them everywhere. China, Europe, obviously the US. And
There's
what's really sad is that they're vulnerable. They're especially some of the birds you get there in California, some of the bigger birds. They're very vulnerable, and
do,
they're very endangered. So it's sad.
do you know what the fine is for shooting an eagle, a bald eagle?
No.
It's hefty. But if you
Yeah.
just club one with a windmill or fry one with a solar laser beam,
Well, that would be the thing. If you want to go and kill bald eagles, just go to a wind farm and try and kill them in such a way that it looks like the wind turbine did it, and then off you go with your bald eagle.
and then in Canada, in the climate confusion here, the MPs defend that gas cap. There you go, 192 to 140. And I mean, this is another one where the Conservatives put this motion forward. I think it's more just to see, show me the path forward, because, Carney kind of double talks that when he's talking about, like going to be an energy superpower, clean energy superpower. We have the cleanest energy. But here it is. They put it to the test and said, there you go. And they voted it to keep the emissions cap, 192 to 140. So that would be all the Conservatives. And
So that means as well, doesn't it? Obviously, all the bloc, basically all the NDP, they all went with the Liberals.
Yep, yep.
They are all fundamentally anti-energy, aren't they? And this doesn't really bode well for Mark Carney either, does it really? Because he might have expected to rely on those other parties to get legislation through, but it looks like it's such a strange situation, the lay of the land right now in the House of Commons, because he is in effect now relying on Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to pass infrastructure legislation. It's wacky, because one would assume, unless there's some hefty bribe in there for Quebec, which there probably will be, let's be honest, but you have to assume that those parties are going to vote against anything like this. It's so weird. Like Elizabeth May said the other day, I think last week, she said she reckons that this parliament has about a year to go. I think that's right. Like, I really don't think this government's gonna hold. I think this government will fall sooner than people might expect.
This is a strong message to Danielle Smith. This is, when, they're kind of like leading her along and telling her things are going to be okay. And this is the message right here. So I think that's why the Conservatives floated this motion. They just wanted it to be like, well, just then remove it. But so this thing would require 40 million tons a year in reductions by 2030, starting now. Canada is committed to reducing them by 40 to 45%. We saw 0 megatons of reductions in 2024, and we're seeing fewer climate policies on the table today. So there you
It's
go.
just crazy, isn't it, that these two parties, the NDP and the Bloc, they're still banging that drum. They're still banging that drum like it's 2017.
Yeah.
It's astonishing to me to behold. I mean, Canada's kind of famous within the Anglosphere for being a little bit more conservative, 10 or 15 years behind a lot of other countries. But it's so strange to see it actually play out right before our eyes. Like, while the Americans are in the vanguard, they're changing. The Brits are on the verge of an enormous change if Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister. And all the rest of the Europeans as well, I mean, outside of the Anglosphere, they're all changing. And then Canada, somehow, here we are. Like, we're living in history, aren't we? We're living in the past.
And here's another graph where you can stick in your pile of graphs and charts and all this stuff. And this is the carbon tax hasn't gone away. This is from the Food Professor. Since 2015, the Canada's Food Manufacturing Price Index has surged 78%, far outpacing the 52% increase in the U.S. federal carbon tax hikes. And you can see the gap again between Canada and the United States.
Yeah. How many different graphs on different subjects give you this exact same pattern? It's
And
like
then,
you can just put this across, like GDP per capita, even like
yeah.
GDP growth in general, industrial investment. I mean, that puts Canada going down.
And add in the Liberal talking points. The strongest economy in the G7, the leader in climate, green energy, clean energy superpower. I don't know. You can just lay all the talking points down and then just lay the actual results down. And all of a sudden you say, seems to be problems, right? Lay the immigration ones. We're not talking about immigration right now, but lay the immigration, the influx of immigration, and then lay out the health crisis, the housing crisis, the inflation crisis, and just keep.
But I mean, there are so many graphs. You could have such fun if you just sat and made graphs all day. But another one would be, or charts, whatever you want to say. Another one would be European growth and American growth. Like US and Europe, probably you've seen that. That's all over the place. And then contrast that with the statements from Champagne and Carney about going over to Europe to do business with them, and that's our great salvation. I find it so funny that we're trying to detach ourselves from this gigantic economy that's growing at a rapid speed and trying to attach ourselves to a carcass in Europe. And also, I must say, a carcass that's on the verge of a big leadership change, like we were saying yesterday. Marine Le Pen could be the leader of France in a few years, Nigel Farage in Britain. The AfD might even come to power in Germany, for all we know. That might actually occur. What do we do then? When we've hedged our entire economic strategy on the idea that Europe will buy our stuff because we love climate policies, what happens if they have a lot of people in power that despise those policies?
The UN speech by Trump was, it's being heralded by many of the, I guess, right-leaning media in the United States, Newsmax, Fox, and that stuff. And then now, obviously, shuddered into by, like CNN and how, horrible it is. And I think George Clooney came out, and we're going to talk about it later, how, Trump won't be there forever. But I thought the liberals and the Democrats said that Trump was going to be a ruler forever. So all of a sudden he's leaving. Anyway, that's our climate confusion. That's this segment. Now we're going to drop the stream again if you've been watching. We're going to drop it again. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about liberal scandals and photo ops. And that one's really interesting. We're going to come back with liberal scandals and photo ops.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors. Independent News.